friends, it's Jessie here. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. For today's video, I am bringing you a budget check-in. We are checking in for week 2 of January, which is January 9th through the 15th. We're going to be talking about everything that I spent this week. I already sat down with my channel members and filled out my expense tracker for the week, so I have all of the numbers here off to the side. I'm going to use those to fill in both this monthly section of my hybrid budget as well as this week 2 section. If you have never seen one of my videos before and you're not familiar with my budget worksheets, I do have budget worksheet printables available through my channel membership. If you're interested in that, you can click the join button down below. I use these to help me stay on track with my budget. It's my first month back to budgeting in quite a while. I'm struggling a lot with sticking to the budget because I've been so out of the habit of budgeting, but I'm doing my best. I'm trying. This month's budget, I've already kind of come to terms with the fact that we're probably going to be over budget and it's going to be crazy, but I'm giving myself some grace. It's my first month back and I'm making some good strides in some of my goals in terms of finances. So even though it's been a little messy, it's not been perfect, I'm okay with it. I'm doing my best. So let's start by talking about this monthly section here and fill in the bills that I paid this week. Let me zoom you guys in so that you can see a little bit better. So this week, the bills that came out of my account were DTE. I budgeted $220 for DTE, and the amount that actually came out was $212.11. So that was good. Under budget there. Also, Michigan gas came out this week. I budgeted $55, and that is what I paid. And then lastly for bills, I paid my Sleep Number credit card. So you can see here, I budgeted $300 for that. That is what my husband and I decided we were going to pay every single month to the Sleep Number bed. The actual minimum payment's only like $184. But when we opened this credit card, we decided that our minimum payment that we expected ourselves to pay was $300 a month. So that's what I budgeted. But when I sat down this week to pay this bill, I realized that I needed to pay a little bit more than that if I wanted to get this credit card down to an even number. And that is just so satisfying to me to see those numbers be even. So I paid some extra money to make it an even number. And that's okay. So this is technically going to be over what I budgeted, but I'm okay with it just for the satisfaction of seeing those even numbers on my bill moving forward. So the amount that I actually paid was $375.40. And I'm totally okay with that being a little bit over just for that satisfaction. So that's everything. There's just a couple of bills left for the month. If this is your first video of mine that you have seen, if you're looking at this budget and you're thinking, hey, where is this bill? I don't see it on her budget. There's some bills that I did not include in my budget just for the sake of privacy, so I haven't neglected those things that you may be thinking I missed. I just kept them off for privacy's sake. Hopefully that makes sense. So that's it for this monthly section, but there are some variable things we need to check in with here, and that's what I use this week 2 section for. So for things like groceries, eating out, spending, I have my monthly budget, but I check in with it each week and figure out how much of that monthly budget I have gone through and how much I have remaining for the rest of the month. And it just helps me to stay on track with my budget. Now that being said, as I mentioned, I'm struggling a little bit to stick to my budget this week. So when you see these numbers, don't gasp. You can gasp it if you want. Some of these categories I have vastly overspent in, but I'm just doing my best. I'm giving myself some grace this week, with it being my first month back. Plus, it'll give me an idea of where my numbers are at the end of January, and then I can adjust February accordingly. So each week, the categories that I track are subscriptions. I have this line item in my budget here called subscriptions, and it's a bunch of little bills that come out throughout the month, and I, rather than list out like 15 different piddly $12 bills, I just lumped it all into one subscriptions line item, and it's not technically all subscriptions. Some of the things are like streaming services or monthly subscriptions. Other things are just auto pay things that I feel like fit neatly in this category. So that's what the subscriptions is. Then we have groceries, which includes all of our groceries, plus household items, medicines, that sort of thing. Anything you can buy at Walmart for the most part, I track under groceries here. We have eating out, which is pretty self-explanatory. Any meals that we eat out at a fast food place, a drive-through, a restaurant, that all goes here. Then I have spending, which is essentially just spending outside of these other categories. And then I have miscellaneous, which really is just a buffer, but we include it here. So for subscriptions this week, I paid out $22.99. For groceries, $491.86. That includes all of our groceries for the week from the grocery store, and also factor meals that I get delivered to my house to help me with like work lunches is included under this groceries. And as I mentioned, like any household items, if we buy trash bags or toilet paper, that all comes out of this budget as well. It's crazy high. I have got to get my grocery spending under control. I'm going to try really hard to keep my next week's grocery trip. I'm going to try not to go to the grocery store at all, but I don't think that is reasonable. We're going to run out of something, but I'm going to try to keep it under $100 next week. We'll have to see. Hopefully I'm not sitting down with you next week and telling you I spent another $400 to $500 because I just cannot. I got to get that under control. Eating out was a huge amount this week because we went to a restaurant to celebrate Austin's birthday. I pulled the money out of sinking funds. Actually, I can do this too. I can fill this in over here. I did pull $1,000 out of the bank to fill my sinking funds, but I haven't sat down and actually set up my sinking funds yet. So that money's just sitting there. So, pardon me, I'm losing my voice. The eating out at the restaurant for my son's birthday typically would come out of a celebration sinking fund, but I haven't set those up yet. So it's coming out of our eating out, which makes this seem ridiculously high, and it is, but my typical monthly budget for eating out wouldn't include that fancy meal. So I'm still spending the money. It's like half a dozen, 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other, right? It's the same thing, but it's just inflating my monthly numbers, and I don't have any numbers to put into my sinking funds. I don't know if that makes sense, but it makes sense to me. $295.31 is what we spent in eating out this week. So when I set up my monthly budget for eating out of $500, I was anticipating $500 for the month, not including things like celebrations. I was anticipating those celebrations coming out of the sinking fund money, but I haven't set that up yet. I've been too lazy, so if I go over budget in this eating out, I'm still going to be disappointed and upset because $500 is a stupid amount of money to spend in a month for eating out, even with celebrations, but I won't be as upset because the sinking fund money still has not been touched. All right, I think I've over-explained that and maybe even confused myself. Let's talk about spending. $293.79. I had a really hard time controlling my spending this week. After not being on a budget for quite a while, I was used to just going into Amazon and buying pretty much whatever I wanted within reason. And I'm finding it difficult not to just go into Amazon and buy things that we need around the house and being mindful of the budget. So it's something that I need to continue to work towards. But this week I struggled a lot with that. And miscellaneous, nothing. Again, this is really more of a buffer, but I included it here anyway. So let's go ahead and do some math and figure out what I have remaining in each of these categories. So I started out the month with a grocery budget of $1,500. I said when I wrote my January budget that I was going to have all of these numbers be really high. I was going to estimate high so that if I struggled this month with my budget, I wouldn't go over budget. And even so, like when I was writing in these numbers, I thought in my head, like, there's no way I'll spend that much. I just wanted to give myself plenty of wiggle room. But when it comes to groceries, I'm already like through a big portion of my grocery budget. So yeah, I started out the week at the month at $1,500. The end of last week, we had $996.52 remaining. And this week we spent $491.86. So that means we have $504 with 66 cents remaining. And we still have technically 3 more weeks of January. So that's gonna be cutting it close, because I have factor meals every week for the rest of the month at right around $100. So that's $300 of that grocery budget right there. So really I have like $200 left for the month if I don't want to go over budget. It's going to be tough, but I do have a whole freezer full of food. So I'm really going to try to stick to this. We'll see. And I skipped right over subscriptions. I don't know how I managed to do that, but I started out the month with $250 in my subscription budget. At the end of last week, we had $166.94 remaining. This week we spent $22.99, which means I still have $143.95 for the rest of the month, which we should be just fine with subscriptions. For eating out, I started the week, I keep saying the week, I'm sorry you guys. I started the month out with $500. At the end of last week, we still had $437.62, and we spent $295.31 this week, which leaves us with $142.31. Now, I don't anticipate we're going to do a ton more eating out this month. We don't have any more celebrations. We are celebrating my aunt's birthday this weekend. There will be eating out there, but I'm going to pull that from my savings. I already decided that. So I won't touch this money there. We also have my husband's birthday at the end of the month, but we're not going out for that. We're going to eat here at home. So that shouldn't affect this eating out. So we should be okay. We'll just kind of have to see. For spending, I started out the month with a $600 budget. At the end of last week, we had $299.70 remaining, and we spent $293.79, which means we have $5.91 remaining. So the odds that we are only going to spend $5.91 or less for the rest of the month are slim and none. So I need to prepare myself for the fact that we're probably going to be over budget in spending. We do have that $200 in miscellaneous that can act as a buffer. I also may take money from our sinking funds. Since I've been using money out of our monthly budget for things that should come out of sinking funds, like some of that eating out money, I may end up taking some of that sinking fund money and putting it back into our budget to offset some of the overspending, so that might help a little bit. But even so, I need to be wary. My spending was out of control this month. We've still got 3 full weeks left of the month. I need to get it under control. So since I sat down and did this budget check-in, I know that. If I was just spending willy-nilly and not checking in with my budget each week, it could be an even worse scenario than what it already is. So I'm grateful that I sat down with you guys today to check in with my budget. The spending is definitely out of hand. But again, some of the things that I did use spending money for were things that typically would come out of a sinking fund. Some like household items. We bought a new rug that typically would come out of a sinking fund, and I haven't set my sinking funds up yet. So that's why I'm thinking that some of the sinking fund money might get funneled back into my budget at the end of the month. We'll have to see what the actual amount is versus how much we budgeted. If we're over by like $200 at the end of the month, I may take that $200 and put it back into the budget. We'll see. Miscellaneous, we still have the full $200 left, which is good because I'm going to need it. So with all of that said, the amount that I spent in variable spending this week, $22.99 plus $491.86 plus $295.31 plus $293.79 is $1,103 with 95 cents. $143.95 plus $504.66 plus $142.31 plus $591 plus $200. We have $996.83 in variable spending left for the month. And the reason why I do this is because if I am, for example, over budget in this spending category, but I'm significantly under budget in another category and the two of them equal out, I'm still okay with it. My ultimate goal is to not go over budget in general. So, you know, I try to set up my budget with a pretty solid amount in each category so that I can keep those categories under control. If I notice month after month one specific category I'm constantly going over budget in, then I need to reevaluate things. But if we're talking about like, you know, $60 here or there, or even $100 here or there, and it all evens out in the end, I'm okay with it. So the only other thing I would like to do with you all before I say goodbye is talk to you about the extra debt. I did make an extra debt payment this week for week 2. I paid $200 more to our Discover card. And actually, I'm just going to go ahead and set this budgeted amount up here. So there's 5 weeks in January, or at least there's 5 paychecks for us in January. We're paid on Tuesdays. And my goal is to send $200 each week to the credit card we're currently working on, which is Discover. And if we do that, that will be a total of $1,000, which is what we budgeted here, $1,000 in extra debt. So for week 2, I did send $200. I was able to make that payment. So we are on track to meet our goal of $1,000. And I thought it would be fun to go ahead and add that payment here into my debt tracker and color in one of the lines with you all. So I made the payment on January 14th. The payment was for $200. Which is going to bring our ending balance down to $5,600, which is great. And could you guys see that? Or was I out of frame? I'm so sorry if I was out of frame. My apologies. $5,600 means that we can actually color in 2 lines on my debt-free chart here. And we're still in January, so I'm going to use blue to color this in. I like to choose a different color for each month so that I can see the monthly progress. When we get to February, I likely will switch to like a pink for Valentine's Day. But then once this chart is all filled up and I can look at it and see, you know, I made this much progress in January, this much progress in February, and so on. It's just really visually appealing for me. I really like it. Oops, I'm throwing my marker here. I really just like the way it looks. It helps me to stay motivated. And as you can see, so far in January, I've colored in 3 lines, which is exciting. And we still have 3 more weeks to go. So that is going to wrap up my budget check-in. Feel like overall it was a good week. Other than that spending and that grocery shopping, I need to get that under control. But I know that now. I have that information. I can use it moving forward. So I will check in with you guys again next week with another budget update. If you want to see more in depth what we spent this week, where each of the transactions happened and how much they were for, you can join my channel membership. I did a members only video where I tracked all of my expenses for the week. So check out that if you're interested. There's a link down below. Don't forget to subscribe. That's completely free. It's a great way for my videos to pop up in your subscription feed every single time I upload. And I will see you guys real soon with another budget video. Bye!